self-realizing, awakening. It's not an experience that comes and then you get that experience and then you become somebody else suddenly. The direct recognition, the direct realization of what you really are is an instant recognition. It's instant recognition. That's not a gradual thing. That recognition is instant in any moment of now. And it may happen in the beginning of recognizing that there's the experience of having that recognition and then falling straight back into re-identification with what has been living you habitually for all of the life. And then again, another recognition. And then again, a falling back, re-identification, until a moment comes that the falling back and the re-identification of a separate appearance of somebody playing out as somebody is being seen through all the time and doesn't anymore run your life. It's over. It's over. It has no grip on your life because there is a deep, deep recognition of the truth of what you are and somehow a commitment that there's no way back to energizing all of that stuff. There's just no way back. It's just, it's seen, it's dropped, it's seen, it's dropped, it's seen, it's dropped. That may happen over time. And over time, the self-identity, which is full of all kinds of trauma, unmet, unclarified patterning, it's having a life of its own in the beginning, and it's showing up. And these are the moments of radical choice. And this choice only appears when there is awareness of a choice. Once there is awareness, once there is seeing, then the choice is choiceless. So what can help that in a quickening way? You know, because there's often the idea or the belief or the belief of a self that, especially when gathering a lot of spiritual ideas, that there's nothing to do, or just it's all just. And while this is true on one level, on another level, you are called to participate in this undoing. You're called to participate, and yes, once you have awareness of a choice, of choices on a daily basis and a moment-to-moment living basis, you are aware of little choices in little things constantly. Once you're aware that when there's awareness, there appears a choice. the choice is choiceless. It's a choiceless choice because awareness is seeing. Yeah. So what then has the greater dominance of you moves. So to quicken this integration, to the quickening of the self-personality that you are here to be in this world, which is unique, and there's not another one as you. All of that is it has to be upgraded for any kind of integration of self-realization. You don't walk as an awakened being without an integration in the personality levels. So do you have anything to do with that? Yes, you do. No, you don't, and yes, you do. As long as there's awareness, yes, you do. There is a quickening. And how does this quickening, even if, with spiritual concepts, you can come up with, well, I'm not the doer, which is a pointer for the ego. You as consciousness, there's not a separate self doing, but you as consciousness are doing everything. So the quickening, how can you quicken this integration? Well, it needs complete dedication and commitment. That has an atmosphere around it. It has an atmosphere of the way you live your life. The way you live your life, what you attend to, the sensitivity you have towards respectfully placing all the time what is deeply valued into the surface. There will be moments when there's activation in the body-mind, and patterning trauma can come. As you know, I speak of this all the time. I meet you in this all the time. And together we see how meeting this in truth is the way in which this can finally transform, can change forms. Yeah. But all what that depends on is how much space you have in yourself. How much space do you have between you and your thoughts, between you and your actions? Now, you don't have control over life or the events. You're not a controller. Yet one thing that you do have some control in is creating space. Creating space. Because if you don't have any space in yourself, then you are run by the program. And that's all you can relate to everywhere. Because there's no space. Now for me, that space is a priority. It's a number one. I live my life, and have done for years, attending to having spaciousness of being. That even now that I find myself in a circumstantial situation where my schedule is such that I don't have a lot of room for just moving all day in the pace that I would love, still the little bits that I do have, I value creating space. The spaciousness of being is pretty much top on my list, because this is where your true nature emits its fragrance, its essential nature of peacefulness. So instead of protecting a self here, a self-made up self out of programs, conditions, and separate identity, instead of protecting that, more the shift is in protecting space. So I can have that space to open as the being that I am. It's like a medicine. It's the only medicine that I've ever suggested to anybody. In different ways, I say it, dropping. You get space. From the surface, you drop, you get space. And the spaciousness of being, where you have space to move, where there are no expectations landed on you and all these kind of demands of a so-called world. So that spaciousness of being is where you expand as a being aware. You expand in having space. You expand as the spaciousness of being. And in that, things just digest and clarify. So this is a number one important in the life here. I know for a fact that if I don't have that, then all the events on the surface of my life are met differently. They are experienced differently. So that first basic value, which is pretty top on my list, determines my predisposition to all that comes into my living experience. Where I am in myself determines how I will experience, can be the most stressful experience on the surface. But how that's experienced by me is going to depend on where I am in the first place. And so this is why this has priority for me. If you get clear about your priorities, what's the top on your list? That is the foundation that serves everything else. And that is why the retreats I hold, all of them are in silence. There's no chatting in between the sessions, because this gives the space for people to be together. To be together, to move in a way of being, where nobody is asking for anything, nobody is. So they have the space just to be and breathe out, knowing that chatting's not allowed. So then they got that space. So, but if you don't have that value in yourself, you cannot value that. You will be trying to fill up that space all the time, just to survive as a separate self. Many people come and they almost can't stand it, because who will I be? Who am I going to be now? Like, I don't know how to be in this spaciousness of being, because you will be nobody. And this is the last thing the ego wants. This is the last thing. What we call ego, the somebodyness, wants, is to be nobody. Which is what you are when you're moving just as being. When you're just being. That's what you are. There's nobody here but being aware. It's very difficult for the ego to be nobody. The ego cannot be nobody. It is its dissolution. And there may be cooking in that, but if you are having your values clear and your priority list clear, that cooking is freely being digested in awareness, as being just moves as it moves. And this is how the quickening, because within that there is a deepening of knowing yourself as a being aware. There's a quickening because there is a deepening of where your foundation, your identity is, of what you know yourself to be. So as we are facing now more and more quickening on the surface, the world is getting more and more nuts on the surface. This spaciousness of being is ever more number one important. So if you want to participate in the quickening and the deepening and have a foundation in what is realized, and therefore strengthening your predisposition in a way that no matter how stressful and challenging it may get on the surface, you are rooted and you know the sanctuary of your own being. And that is more dominant than whatever can. So then, what is the most important thing in the life, the living of this life? I will shut up here, and I will invite you to, during and after the call, to really clarify that for yourself. To really clarify this. And this doesn't just get clarified once in your life. This is an ongoing clarification, an ongoing clarification. And certain life situations will bring conditions that will offer, once again, the invitation to prioritize and get clear about the number one important thing. This evokes many versions of this question: what is true freedom? What are your decisions based on? If your decisions are serving your number one priority, then there's no decision.